Under the bright lights of the arena, the energy crackled like a live wire. The crowd wasn't just watching, they were feeling every moment, every pulse of the fight yet to come. In the center of it all, two warriors stood on the precipice of a defining night. Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker. Two men, two undefeated records, and only one path forward. The air hummed with the anticipation of something electric, something unforgettable. Donovan's rise had been nothing short of spectacular. From the moment he first laced up gloves, there had been whispers of something special. A southpaw with lightning in his hands and ice in his veins, he moved through opponents like a storm tearing across the coastline. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a statement. A declaration that he wasn't here to take part. He was here to take over. The Irish sensation carried himself with the swagger of a man who knew where he was going, and he never once doubted he would get there. But if Donovan was the storm, Lewis Crocker was the immovable force in its path. A powerhouse with knockout power in both hands, Crocker had built his reputation with thunderous finishes and an aggressive, relentless style that turned fights into wars. He wasn't one for long. Drawn-out battles, he preferred to end things quickly, violently. His punches weren't just thrown, they were launched with bad intentions, each one designed to break the will of the man in front of him. And tonight, he had every intention of making sure Donovan felt that power firsthand. The atmosphere inside the arena was thick with something more than just expectation. It was personal. There was history here, a rivalry that had been brewing long before the first bell. Two men, each convinced they were the future of their division, now standing on the edge of a collision that neither could afford to lose. It was more than just a fight. It was about proving who truly belonged at the top. As the fighters made their way to the ring, their expressions told the story better than any pre-fight hype ever could. Donovan's calm, almost eerie composure contrasted with the raw intensity in Crocker's stare. This wasn't just about winning. It was about making a statement. About walking away with more than just a victory. It was about walking away as the man everyone feared. The bell hadn't rung yet, but the fight had already begun in the minds of those watching. Every second of build-up, every exchanged glance, every slow inhale before the storm. It all led to one moment. And as the referee called them to the center, one question hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. Who would break first? The first round began with a fury. As soon as the bell rang, the sound of gloves hitting flesh echoed through the arena. Donovan wasted no time, darting in and out with his trademark footwork, his left hand a blur as he landed quick jabs and clean crosses. He was elusive, dancing around Crocker with the agility of a fighter who had mastered the art of making his opponent miss. But Crocker was a different breed. He was a tank, unrelenting, and no matter how hard Donovan tried to move, Crocker's punches came like a freight train, each one landing with a kind of force that could turn a fight in an instant. For a moment, it seemed like Crocker's power was a storm that Donovan couldn't outrun. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, every movement from the fighter sending waves of energy through the arena. Donovan, though sharp and precise, had to adapt quickly. The pace was fast, and Crocker's presence was overwhelming. It was clear that if this turned into a slugfest, Donovan's speed might not be enough to avoid the inevitable power of Crocker's strikes. Then, something happened. In the middle of a high-paced exchange, Crocker, known for his calm under pressure, seemed to hesitate just for a split second. Donovan seized the opportunity, landing a clean left hook to Crocker's temple. It wasn't the hardest punch Donovan had ever thrown, but it was perfectly placed. For the briefest moment, Crocker's body seemed to freeze, his eyes widened, and then he staggered back, disoriented. The crowd gasped. Was this the moment Donovan had been waiting for? Was he about to break Crocker's invincible streak? But just as quickly as it happened, Crocker's vicious counterattack came faster than anyone could predict. He threw a right hook that crashed against Donovan's jaw with bone-shattering impact, sending him stumbling. The room went quiet. For a moment, it looked like the fight might be over. However, Donovan's legs held him up. He blinked rapidly, shaking off the shot and gritted his teeth. The Irishman wasn't done yet. His eyes narrowed, and in a flash, he was back on the offensive, using his footwork to create space. The tension was palpable, the outcome hanging by the thinnest of threads. Yet, just as the fight seemed poised for its inevitable conclusion, another twist arose from the shadows. A low murmur began to circulate through the crowd. Something strange was happening. Crocker, usually a man in full control, seemed off. His footwork wasn't as sharp. His punches, though still powerful, lacked the precision they had earlier. Was it the blow from Donovan that had caused a shift? Or was something more insidious at play? The unexpected turn made every movement under the lights feel heavier. It wasn't just about two fighters anymore. It was about the mental game, the war within the minds. Donovan could sense it. Crocker was no longer the same. His body language spoke volumes. The challenger was not just facing a man who could break him with sheer strength. He was facing an opponent who had now cracked the code. But before Donovan could press the advantage, the lights above them flickered. A split second. It was nothing more than a passing glitch, but in that heartbeat, something strange occurred. Crocker's eyes flared with an intensity that felt almost unnatural. Was it anger? Fear? The crowd was on edge, unsure of what they were witnessing. And in that split moment, Donovan, too, sensed that the fight was no longer just about strength and skill. It was about surviving the unknown. The next few minutes saw both men throwing punches that seemed to carry more weight than before, as if they were not just fighting each other but some deeper, darker force. It was no longer just about victory. It was about who could stand tall in the face of whatever had just shifted between them. Crocker's eyes locked onto Donovan's with a renewed intensity, and it was as though the entire arena held its breath in unison. There was something more to this fight, something hidden in plain sight that no one could yet understand. The seconds on the clock seemed to stretch like elastic, every tick now weighed down with a strange tension that both men couldn't shake. Crocker's movements were slower now, his once formidable presence beginning to waver. Donovan, sensing the shift, pushed harder, forcing Crocker to the edge of his endurance. The crowd's energy surged, as if they could feel the turning tide. With every strike that landed, it seemed as though Crocker's armor was cracking. The raw, unrelenting force that had been his trademark was now scattered with hesitation, a crack in the invincible facade. But just when it appeared that Donovan was poised to finish the fight, Crocker unleashed a primal roar, a sound that seemed to echo through the arena like a thunderclap. In an instant, he launched forward, and it was clear that whatever had shifted within him had been unleashed. The power behind his punches was now pure, untamed fury. Donovan ducked and dodged, but Crocker's ferocity was too much to deny. A sweeping left hook landed flush on Donovan's temple, sending him crashing to the canvas. The crowd gasped. It was the kind of punch that made the world stop for a moment, as though the fight itself had just changed in the blink of an eye. But Donovan wasn't finished. The man who had carved out a name with precision and speed now found himself fighting for his very survival. As he struggled to regain his bearings, something unexpected flickered across his mind, a reminder of everything he had fought for, of the sacrifice and the dreams that had brought him to this moment. With grit and determination, he pushed himself up, his eyes blazing with the fire of someone who would not be defeated. The seconds seemed to stretch as he shook off the blow, wiping the blood from his lip. The fight had become a dance now, a game of inches. As Crocker moved in for the kill, Donovan's instincts took over. His footwork was a blur, a reflection of everything he had trained for. He ducked under a right hook, pivoted on his lead foot, and unleashed a vicious left uppercut. The punch landed cleanly, and for the first time that night, Crocker's knees buckled. The arena erupted into deafening roars as the tide shifted once more. The fighters stood at opposite corners, both bleeding and battered, but neither willing to back down. This was no longer about speed or power. It was about heart. And in that moment, Donovan's heart beat louder than Crocker's. With a final push, Donovan closed the distance, throwing a barrage of punches, each one landing with precision, each one a testament to his unwavering belief that he was the one destined to leave as the victor. Crocker, once a machine of violence, seemed to falter with every blow. His strength was slipping, his defenses weakening. And then, in a moment that seemed to hang in time, Donovan landed one final left hook, a thunderous blow that sent Crocker to the canvas with a resounding thud. The referee immediately stepped in, signaling the end of the fight. But as Crocker lay on the mat, there was something no one had anticipated. He slowly raised a hand, not in surrender, but in recognition. It wasn't the defeat that had broken him. It was the realization that this fight, this battle, had revealed something deeper than mere competition. Crocker's pride had been shattered, but in its place, a new understanding was born: respect. Respect for Donovan, for his ability to withstand the unrelenting storm and turn it into his own victory. As the crowd chanted Donovan's name, the Irishman stood tall in the center of the ring, his chest heaving, the weight of the battle still hanging on his shoulders. But there was a quiet satisfaction in his eyes, now a satisfaction that spoke not just of victory, but of transformation. For in that final moment, Donovan had proved something to everyone watching, something that went beyond the knockout punch. He had proven that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the heart of a true champion could never be broken. And as he looked down at Crocker, who had finally risen to his feet, their eyes met for a brief moment, an unspoken bond passing between them. It wasn't just about who had won. It was about who had fought for glory, for pride, and for the love of the sport. The arena slowly quieted, but the memory of the fight of these two warriors, locked in a battle of wills, would stay with them forever. The tension, the raw emotion, and the unexpected twist had all culminated in one unforgettable night. And though Donovan had claimed the victory, it was Crocker's resilience, his unyielding spirit, that had left the deepest impression. The fight may have ended, but this story would live on long after the lights went out.